am the Immigration Department Head at the Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Refugees, one of our humanitarian immigrants. I'm going to walk you through the typical requirements for refugees, also some of the steps after you've come as a refugee, and then talk a little bit about our organization and how our mission intersects with the refugee population. So here we go, we'll dive in. So a refugee, there's a very specific definition of who a refugee is. It is a status for people who are of special humanitarian concern to the United States, and they meet this definition. They have to be outside of their home country. So think of somebody who's in a country where there's either civil unrest or maybe some famine or some other reason have been driven outside of their own country. They're unable or unwilling to return to their home country because they fear serious harm. And they can demonstrate that they were persecuted or fear persecution due to race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. So this is really one of those situations where the humanitarian concern is large enough that we know that they will have to be resettled away from that region, and the United States is one of the areas that they are looking at resettling. They cannot be firmly resettled in another country. So if an individual was first a refugee and then, let's say, resettled in Germany and then said, I was a refugee once, I want to now resettle in the United States, they are not eligible to come to the United States as a refugee if they have been in Germany and basically built their life there for a few years. They also have to be admissible to the United States. That's a term of art in immigration, and it really is saying that there is a lack of those things that would keep them from being able to enter the United States lawfully through this process because they don't have any criminal record or anything in their history that would have said that they are not desirable to have in the United States, maybe as a national security threat or as communicable disease or as a gang member, those kind of things. So inadmissibility and admissibility is one of those terms of art. But there are specifically people who cannot be a refugee because of their past conduct. And that's not related to criminal conduct necessarily, but it's past conduct where they were somebody who ordered, incited, assisted, or otherwise participated in someone in persecuting them on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. If you watch the rest of our webinars, this is going to look very familiar. These are areas where somebody who is already in the United States may be seeking under these same or similar issues. This is actually defined in the Immigration and Nationality Act, which is the regulations that control U.S. immigration. So the process for requesting refugee status. The interesting thing about this is it's really not a US-based process per se, because you're actually going to be receiving humanitarian assistance first from one of the humanitarian organizations outside of the United States, like the US Refugee Assistance Program or the United Nations Refugee Assistance Program. So these are non-governmental organizations that actually help to identify and start the application for resettlement outside the country in that second country where the person is not yet firmly resettled. So those organizations will first do a referral for you, and then you will actually be processed at the Resettlement Support Center, where they will gather your information, including your biographical information. They will conduct an interview face-to-face with a U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services refugee officer who is actually there in country. And they will assess your health to identify any medical needs to ensure that you do not have a contagious disease. As we spoke about earlier, that is an area of inadmissibility. The most frequent one that we see are people who are testing positive for tuberculosis, and they need to show that it is not an active case. One of the other things that that Resettlement Support Center will do is it will actually contact one of the sponsorship organizations in the area where you're going to be resettled in the country, and in the US, they would want to have assurances that that organization is for you as you transition into life in the United States. And you will also be required to have a cultural orientation about the United States before coming. So somebody may come as a refugee, but they may not have come with their whole family. So the next question may be, can my wife and kids come with me? So yes, if you are a refugee with your family, your case may include your legal and lawful spouse, determined in the country where that marriage took place, and your child who is unmarried and has not yet reached their 21st birthday. So even though they may not have that fear, they can still come with you. And in some limited circumstances, other family members. This is very broad, so we're not going to get into that. But I would point out there is no fee to apply for a refugee status, and the information you provided will not be shared with your home country. We don't want to have anybody fearing for their life that what they tell the US government will be used against them by their home country. So sometimes you come into the refugee situation as a family group, and sometimes you individually come and your family stayed in another country. So what about them? If you are already in the United States and you want your family to join you, the process actually changes to making an application to the US Citizenship and Immigration Services for them to follow you, called a following to join application for refugee or asylee relative. It can also be for your spouse and for your unmarried child under 21. And it needs to be filed within 2 years of your arriving in the United States. One of the interesting things about being a refugee is that you actually come into the United States immediately eligible to work. That is something that is unique and does not happen with most people who are not lawful permanent residents when they enter the United States. When you come through either the port of entry or possibly a pre-flight inspection, US Customs and Border Protection will actually give you an electronic form, an arrival departure record, and it will actually show that you are being admitted as a refugee. And with that, you are actually able to work. If you choose, you can also make an application for an actual card that's an employment authorization document. That's very helpful because it can also be used as an ID because it will have your picture on it. And that would be something that might be a little more understandable to an employer than an I-94 card. So once you're here and in the United States living, either with or without your family, because they may be following to join, you can ask for lawful permanent residence. You would do that after 1 year of being in the United States as a refugee. Lawful permanent residence in the refugee status also has no filing fee and no fingerprinting fee. You can get more information on the uscis.gov website. So once you're here and you've left your home country, you may not be able to ever get a passport from that country because you've now fled and the government may be unwilling to even acknowledge you as a citizen or national of that country. So we do have a mechanism, and it's a passport style document that you can get. It's called a refugee travel document. Again, it's a form that you're going to file with US Citizenship and Immigration Services. And that form will allow you, and with your resident card, to travel. You need to do that before you leave the United States, or you may have trouble re-entering the US. And if you return to the country for which you fled, that may be used against you. They may think that you do not have an actual need to be a refugee if you are returning to that country and not fearing for your safety any longer. This is a little bit of a picture of what a travel document looks, and it really does look like that. It is a passport style, and it is that color, kind of a dark blue-green. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how our organization, CLCMA, intersects with refugees. We are an organization that does federal impact litigation in the US District Courts and the Court of Appeals, and even some of our cases have gone through the Supreme Court. And these cases differ in the mechanism that they use to get people what they need. Many people in immigration have broad, complex cases, and impact litigation requires that we understand that but we don't do what I would call petition-based immigration. Most immigration attorneys do not do litigation. They do applications such as citizenship, maybe lawful permanent residence, or deportation. So some of the same things that a refugee may go through once they're here, getting their own lawful permanent residence, maybe having their relative follow to join, the travel document, those would all be done by a general immigration attorney if you wanted to have that help. So we know that those cases that we will take are impact litigation and they are time intensive. So we look at all of the inquiries that we receive across all of our groups, which is immigration, civil litigation, criminal in the litigation context. And then also we have a nonprofit practice group that does seminars and trainings for nonprofit organizations to make sure that they have the information necessary to be in compliance with US laws so that they will not be in jeopardy of losing their nonprofit status. So we take those inquiries, we give a consultation with an attorney over the phone usually, potentially over video or in person if somebody is in the Dallas area, and then we discuss that and make a recommendation to our CLCMA board of directors. If we believe that is in our impact litigation area, we will then have the board of directors make an approval, and that will become one of our impact litigation cases. We have very few of those that actually make it through the process because cases will last maybe 2, 3 or more years. And that means that we have to be very selective because when we take on a case, we understand that this is an individual case that is going to have a community impact. So that's different from a lot of organizations that maybe do litigation as a nonprofit organization that have splashy cases that might be in the news that take on a lot of individuals for one issue. We take on one individual for a big issue. And that is very specific in our immigration department and how it might intersect with a refugee status. So when we look at it, we are looking at that impact litigation or administrative cases that will help fight discrimination and injustice that is being done by the US government. Those are usually in the areas of civil rights based on race, religion, or country of nationality, or a US constitutional violation. Many times they involve complex facts and legal questions related to national security. And sometimes what that means is that individuals who may have come here as a refugee might have had associations with individuals or participated in groups or associations with groups in the past that are now disfavored with the United States. So even though they were allowed to come here, that they feared persecution, now the government is delaying or denying their case for things that happened even before they came here and were awarded refugee status by our own government. So we do accept fewer cases, but what that means is that we are going to vigorously represent the cases that we have either in litigation in federal courts or in pre-litigation in the administrative side. And we want to make a broad community impact with those cases. And so that is why we have to be very good at choosing the cases that will be the best use of our resources to make the best impact in the community, because good cases make good law that will help people following after that individual so that those same good outcomes can benefit those other individuals. But I don't want you to feel like if you come to CLCMA and ask for immigration assistance that you will be left without anything. Because even if you come and it is not something that we do, we're going to talk about, do you need an attorney? Some people think that they do, and some people wonder if they do. Some people think that it's filling out forms. They had relatives who did it without an attorney. They think it costs too much. That's why they've come to a nonprofit organization. Or maybe they even understand that their case is simple, but they were hoping that we could help. Well, some of those cases are simple and some of them are not. We have plenty of instances where we have seen what started out as a simple case get turned by the US Citizenship and Immigration Services into a complex case and is being delayed or denied, often in the immigration context under the program that has the acronym Carp, and that is an additional review process where facts and circumstances that are now being brought forward are being used to deny that application. And for those reasons, we might look at it as a case that can be impact litigation, that we want to show this person deserves the benefit, that they are not a risk, and that they should not have to be delayed or denied. So if we can't take your case because you're not one of those cases, what I will do for you is at least provide you a direction, some resources. These are examples of the way that I would provide resources, and often I will email those to people and be a little more specific to your location. This is something that I feel I can do for you if I cannot accept your case or make a recommendation to our board. And hopefully that will at least help you to get your assistance that you need. I know that there's a lot of things that we do in immigration. I hope you take the opportunity to see the webinars that we are making and also the ones from our other practice groups. I think that they will be informative and also help you to understand our organization better and the kinds of cases that we do. I really do appreciate the time that you've taken. Again, my name is Kate Brady, Operation Department Head. I thank you for this time. And if you have any other questions, please do our website at www.clcma.org. And if you have a case where you think that it might be in our area, please do submit an inquiry, and I look forward to speaking to you. Thank you.